أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا صدق الله العظيم. In the previous session we talked about the background of Surah Al-Kahf, and we also talked about the ahadith that talk about the virtue and the benefits of reciting Surah Al-Kahf. And as we see in those ahadith, the greatest virtue that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentioned of Surah Al-Kahf is a protection against Dajjal and against the fitna of Dajjal. In one of the ahadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that person will have a light, and then depending how much the person will recite, the more the person will recite, the more nur and light that person would have. And of course, nur simply will help the person seeing the truth and being able to distinguish between haqq and batil. So the Surah Al-Kahf is a very helpful surah in knowing the fitnas, in understanding what these fitnas are, and then being able to protect ourselves against these fitnas. Remember, it's not easy for every person to know what is fitna and which is not fitna. We fall into a lot of situations, and sometimes shaitan can be very deceiving to a person, misleading, misinforming, using our own deen and iman, and trying to tell us that because of your iman you should do this, something that we feel might be a requirement of our deen and iman, but really in reality through that the person is falling into a fitna. It's extremely difficult to distinguish between those fitnas and things that are not fitnas, as fitnas start falling one after another. And the worst of these fitnas is the fitna of Dajjal. This is the reason Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam warned the ummah in so many ahadith and with such strong words, telling us that every prophet of Allah warned his ummah against this fitna. Why is he telling us all of this? So that we realize how dangerous this fitna would be. And because of its danger and because of difficulty of distinguishing between haqq and batil, between the truth and falsehood, this fitna specifically is called the fitna of Dajjal. And Dajjal in Arabic language means mixing up of something so badly that you cannot distinguish between the two. So this fitna, the main theme of the fitna will be that mix up the haqq and batil, truth and falsehood so badly that people will not be able to distinguish between the haqq and batil. As I said, in normal fitnas, it's difficult to distinguish between haqq and batil for every normal person. And when it comes to the fitna of Dajjal, it's even worse. This reminds me of a hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam talked about a person from Bani Israel falling into a fitna. There are many of these examples in the hadith, but this is a very amazing example that at least can tell us something, and we can get from and understand from this example how difficult sometimes it might be for a person to protect him or herself against the fitnas. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, there was a person in Bani Israel who was abid, very virtuous person, and always in the ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for those people in that, out of Bani Israel, especially the Christians, those who are into the ibadah too much, they used to just leave the town, they stay away from people, and they would be in the jungles, build their place of worship, have a place for them, and they will be just doing the ibadah over there. Every day this person used to go out just for a walk. So one day as he went out for a walk, he saw a dead body. He saw a person's dead body, and when he saw that dead body, he realized that this person was not a believer. So in order not to smell the body of a kafir, he changed the route and took a longer route to go back to his home or place of worship, whatever he had. So when he took that longer route, he was happy of himself that Alhamdulillah I stayed away from kafir. It was my responsibility to stay away from disbelievers. So I stayed away from this believer, not only the living being, I stayed away even from a kafir, from the body of a kafir, so that I won't smell it. As he's thinking about it, someone came to him and said to him, a person met him and said to him that, I know what you're thinking at this time. He said, what do you think I'm thinking about at this time? He said, you're thinking about not smelling the body of a kafir. He said, yes, true. How did you know that? He said, that's between me and Allah. I know this is what you have been thinking about. And I can tell you this much also, that Allah is upset with you. Now, of course, this person, at the first step, is impressed with his virtue. And the second step, Allah is upset with you, so he says, now, of course, he trusts him. So he asked him, how did you know that? He said, that is because you refuse to smell a body of a human being like you. His kufr is with him. But after all, he is a human being. So he said, yes, this might be a mistake. He said, I will tell you the way of repenting from this. Since you refuse to smell a body of a human being like you, now, in order to show Allah that you're really repenting and you really are sorry for what you have done, get a dead animal. You're in the jungle. Try to find a dead animal or kill an animal and keep that dead animal with you for as long as you can. Through that, you would prove that, Ya Allah, because I refused to smell the body of a kafir, here I can smell now, and I'm making myself smell a body of an animal, so that I can show that as I refuse to smell a body of a human being like me, it wasn't because of my arrogance. Here I can smell an animal also. It was only because of his kufr. So this person was convinced, and he kept a dead animal with him. Now the hadith says, that person that met him in that form and informed him about all of this and gave him this instruction was shaitan. He came to him in a form of a human being and told him Of course, he knew what he was thinking about because he's making him think that. He's whispering to him. And then he comes to him in the form of a human being and telling him that Allah is upset with you because you are thinking this. Then he gives him the solution. And the solution is something where he is going to keep a dead animal with him, which is haram, which means is najis, is unclean. So any ibadah this person will perform, the ibadah will not be accepted because he has a najasa on him. Through this, shaitan was able to keep this person away from his prayers and everything, although he's praying, but his salah is not being accepted because he has najasa on him. See, a virtuous person who's trying to be virtuous, how shaitan plays tricks against those people also. And the tricks of shaitan are, of course, of a kind, and they're so strong that many times, generally, people will fall into it and will do what shaitan would ask them to do, thinking that they are becoming better and more virtuous people. Take another very simple example of it. The brothers of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. These are the children of a prophet of Allah. They are raised in the house of a prophet of Allah. Shaitan wanted to play trick with these people. These brothers, they were not very close with their father. They did not want to benefit from their father at that time because they were upset with their father. Why does he like Yusuf more? So then they thought, if we get Yusuf out of our way, then we will get closer to our father. So up to now, they are not benefiting really from their father, who's a prophet of Allah. Yes, they believe in him, but not benefiting from him in a way that you should benefit. So he whispers to them. They don't consult their father. They don't ask their father. In fact, in this case especially, they are trying to hide all the facts from their father. So he whispers to them, would you like to be very virtuous people? Of course, why not? I'll tell you the way how to be virtuous. Your father is a prophet of Allah. You need to get very close to him. You have to have a close connection to him. And you won't be able to have it as long as Yusuf is around you. So the best thing is get rid of Yusuf. And for that, the best thing is you go and kill him. Kill Yusuf. And then you will be very close to your father, and then you will be able to benefit from your father. Look at how Quran explains the whole thinking and their view about this situation. Uqtulu Yusuf. This is what they were saying. Uqtulu Yusuf. Kill Yusuf. Aw itrahuhu arda. Or throw him somewhere away in the jungle. Yakhlu lakum wajhu abikum. Your father then will be only for you, which means you will have full devotion and attention of your father. وَتَكُونُوا مِن بَعْدِهِ قَوْمًا صَالِحِينَ. Through this and after this, you will become very virtuous. And they did it. Killing a person on the name of deen so that we will become virtuous people. This is when shaitan plays his tricks. Shaitan will never come to us and say, don't pray. Don't be a Muslim. Yes, sometimes he might try that also. But he sees that it does not work normally. So what he tells us is, you should pray. Pray in a better way than you are doing now. Your salah is not as good as it's supposed to be. You should be a better Muslim. You should be a greater Muslim. And how to do this? You're about to pray now. Now at this time you're a little tired. Why don't you go to sleep, have a little rest, have your dinner, have food, then go to sleep, have rest, and then wake up and do the salah later on. So that you would do a salah in a better way. What type of Muslim are you by doing salah in this quick way? Yes, true. I should be a better Muslim. So let me eat first. Have my dinner. Then have little rest. Then I will get up and do the salah. And the person never wakes up for salah. He didn't say don't perform the salah. He said do it in a better way. You should be a better Muslim. And a lot of times he uses the very same method of better Muslim, more virtuous, a greater person. Do it in a more professional and a better way. And the way of doing it is, now he will play his trick. You see someone doing something wrong. Shaitan comes to us. He will play different tricks. He will tell someone, MashaAllah, see how good you are that you are not doing these wrong things. Right away he destroyed that person there. That person felt, yes, see, these people are just bad people. They don't have no importance of deen and iman. And I'm the one that, MashaAllah, the best person. Goes to the other person. He knows that way will not work with this one. So he says to that person, you see this person? You better inform everyone about what he has been doing. That's your iman. Show that you are a good, strong Muslim. You will not take something like this. You will not accept something like this. So now this person is going throughout the town backbiting that person on the name of being a very virtuous Muslim. He goes to another person. You see he is doing this? You should go and talk to him in his face and make sure that he knows what he's doing is right. And this person will go and argue and fight on the name of virtue, that I'm being very virtuous, that I won't accept something like this here. And different ways that he would trick different people on the name of iman, taqwa. This is why it's very important, extremely important for us to make sure that we know what are these fitnas and how to protect ourselves from the fitnas. Normally, as I said, every normal person will not be able to know the fitnas and understand these fitnas. And as we learn in the hadith, what happens in many of the times, it might be one person in the family who knows that this thing is a fitna. He tries to explain to every person in the family. No one wants to listen. No one can understand what this person is talking about. Are you saying this is fitna? How can we live? How can we do this? And hundreds of excuses. And this person is trapped so badly that he looks like he's the bad person. The one who's staying away from the fitna looks like he's the bad person and everyone else is good. This is what happens in the situation of the fitnas. And I can tell you this much also. As many fitnas as we have today, never in the history of Islam there were so many fitnas. As many people are going away from deen today, never in the history people went out of deen so fast. As much as we hear against Islam today, never in the past people had to hear so much. And in spite of all of these things, in spite of all of these fitnas that we are surrounded with, still most of the people around us think that right now there is no fitna. And whatever we are doing, we should just continue doing that. We are doing okay with our deen. We are doing good with our Islam. Alhamdulillah, we are good Muslims. We are perfect Muslims. We don't need to improve ourselves or do anything more for our deen. This is part of the very same fitnas. So again, I will remind, fitnas is very difficult to recognize the fitna. After recognizing, then to hold ourselves from falling into it, it's another difficult step. And when it comes to the fitna of Dajjal, that is the most difficult fitna to recognize as a fitna and to know that what is the haqq and what is the truth at that time. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam therefore used to make a dua. Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'ah. Ya Allah, show us what is true and allow us, give us tawfiq to be able to follow the truth. Wa arina al-batila batila, and give us the right understanding of the falsehood. Warzuqna ijtinaba, and protect us against it. Not only knowing, and just knowing is not easy either. Therefore He's making dua, Ya Allah, give us the ability of knowing what is haqq and what is batil. And after that, the second step, whatever we know it's haqq, is true, Ya Allah, give us the tawfiq to be able to follow it. How many things we know, this is what it should be, this is how it's supposed to be, but I can't do it. I have my own reasons for not doing it. How many things we know they are wrong and they are evil, but we fall into it and we give ourselves excuses for doing it. I can't help it, this is the situation, I fall into it and I can't get out of this. Therefore it's very important that we stay away from the fitnas. Each of these fitnas leads to another one, and to a third one, and finally the person, wal-'iyāzu billah, ends up falling into a wrong place. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, as he talked about the fitna of Dajjal, he described Dajjal in many of his ahadith. I will narrate some of these ahadith, then inshaAllah we will try to analyze what will be the main things that the Dajjal will use as part of his fitna, and what will be the signs of his fitna. How would we know that the fitna of the Dajjal exists? Before going into the hadith, I just like to clarify one more point, and that is, there is difference between the fitna of Dajjal and Dajjal himself. As Dajjal will come, that will be the peak of the fitna. So there's many people who, as they started looking into the hadith of the Dajjal, they said, no, it won't be a person. But from the hadith we learned that there will be a person. But the hadith also tell us at the same time, it won't be just a person. Before the person, the fitna of Dajjal will start, of mixing up between the truth and falsehood. So there is something that is called the fitna of Dajjal, and then there will be Dajjal. That fitna will start long before Dajjal will appear and will come, and then he will come, and that will be the peak of that fitna. And as now, with this in mind, as we inshallah analyze the fitna of Dajjal after looking at the hadith, we will be able to see clearly how his fitna will work, what is he going to do with his fitnas, and how is he going to, what are the signs of his fitnas, in which way and method he will try to mislead people from the deen and from the truth that they are holding to. Sayyidina Abdullah bin Umar radiyallahu anhu narrates, the hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, once he gave a khutbah. During the khutbah, he talked about Dajjal. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam at that time said, Inni unzirukumu, I am warning you of this Dajjal. وَمَا مِن نَبِيٍّ إِلَّا قَدْ أَنزَرَ قَوْمَهُ. Every prophet of Allah warned his people against this fitna of the Dajjal. لَقَدْ أَنزَرَهُ نُوحٌ قَوْمَهُ. Even Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam at his time was afraid of the fitna of Dajjal. And therefore even Nuh alayhi salam warned his people against the fitna of Dajjal. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, let me tell you one thing about him. لَمْ يَقُلْهُ نَبِيٌّ لِقَوْمِهِ. No prophet said it to his people. تَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّهُ أَعْوَرُ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَيْسَ بِأَعْوَرُ. He said, you know that for Dajjal will be one eye blind. He will have only one eye. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is free of any fault. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be blind. This is the first thing through which Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is telling us a very important thing. I cannot wait till we get to the conclusions of it to mention this, because I don't want to forget it either. And that is, this Dajjal will claim to be Rabb wal-'iyāzu billah, to be the Lord. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, see how simply he's giving us one point. If we just digest this one, understand it, and remember this point, it will be enough, inshallah, for us to understand that this is Dajjal and I cannot follow this fitna. And that is, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us that he will be one eye blind. Now, why is he telling us this for? And why Allah made him that way? The reason is very simple. One eye blind simply means this person is missing something. There is a defect in this person. He is able to do a lot of things. He will show us thousands of things that we may call it miracles or whatever else, extraordinary things. He says, here, I will get the skies to rain for you. Here, skies, come and start raining, and it will start raining. So some people might use that as a proof. Yes, see, he can get the skies to rain. But isn't it enough for people to look at his eyes and tell that if he was the Lord, in spite of everything that he does, if he was the Lord, he would have been free of this fault? He would at least give himself this eyesight back. And if he's not able to do that, then regardless of what he does, it doesn't really, I'm not attracted by that. Very important point. Now, remember, not necessarily that every fitna that would come as part of the fitna of Dajjal, we will see a blind eye. But at least we will see fault in the people who claim to be of a very high level. And they are claiming to be the supreme powers and the superpowers or whatever else. We can see that if these people are not able to just correct their own short mistakes, or they are not able to take care of their own problems, then how can they fix other people's problems? How can he be the Lord, or he be what he's claiming to be, if he's not able to help himself? And that will be a good enough proof for us to know that this is, if the person claims to be wal-ayazu billah, in competition wal-ayazu billah with Allah, with Lord, we can tell him very clearly, no. You don't fit that position. Otherwise, first thing you will help yourself, and then you will try to help us. But if you cannot help yourself, then I don't need your help. It reminds me, a teacher, and this is a true story. A teacher asking his students once, and that teacher was also one eye blind. So he always used to talk to the students against Deen, against Islam. So once one of the students, he confronted him, and he said to him, you always say there is no Lord and there is no God, and nature created you and your parents created you. You claim that your parents created you. So if you claim that, then since you are one eye blind, why don't you give yourself that one eye? Or if your parents have created you, then they should be able to give you that one eye. If they created you as a whole human being, gave you life, why can't they give you one eye now? So that person tried to be wise, and he backfired. He said, why don't you then ask, if, okay, my parents can't give it to me, then why don't you ask your Lord, and you say Allah is there, why don't you ask Allah to give me my eyesight back, so I will believe in Allah? So he said, that person, that student, was very intelligent, and not necessarily intelligent in these type of situations. I have a lot of this experience that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps. And He puts the right understanding at that time in the person's mind. So that student raised his hands and started making dua, and he's making dua and praying and praying and praying, and finally he puts his hand down, and that person is laughing. He says, see, the teacher is laughing. See, your Lord didn't give me my eyesight back. If my parents didn't give it to me, your Lord couldn't give it to me either. And you said He created me, so why can't He give me? He said, you didn't ask me what I did now. He said, tell me, what did you do? He said, I was praying, and I prayed to Lord. And I was praying and praying and praying, and you know finally what he told me? He said to me that when I created this man, I gave him both of his eyes, I gave him everything he had, and then this man did not believe in me. This man did not believe in me. And he always claimed and he always said that my parents created me. So I took one of his eyesight back, telling him that, okay, now get that eyesight from your father. I won't give it back to you. So of course, it's a good answer that, okay, since you did not believe in the one who gave you all of this, he took one eyesight back so that you can get it from the people who you claim are your Lord. Anyway. Dajjal, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is telling us that he will be missing something where he won't be able to help himself. And you will always find these type of faults into every person who tries to claim to be of wal-ayazu billah, of a supreme power, of a very powerful who can do everything. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts these person in such needs where, and a defect in their lives, where a person, most of the times, a lot of times it happens also, people who have such high claims, they are not able to just keep their families together. Their children are not under their control, their wife is not under the control, and the person is claiming to be something where he can do help the whole world be together. So right there Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is proving, as this person, that how come your own children don't listen to you. So through this, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is telling us, we should know that these type of things will be our only fitness, regardless of what person will show us after knowing that these are the defects in that person. In another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam asked the Sahaba ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, should I inform you of Dajjal? They said, yes, Ya Rasulullah, tell us so that we can protect ourselves against him. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam at that time, he mentioned the very same thing, that he will be one eye blind. Then he said, مَعَهُ مِثَالُ الْجَنَّةِ وَالنَّارِ. He will have something like Jannah and hellfire with him. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam tells us in this hadith, the thing that he will call Jannah will be the hellfire. And the thing that he will call hellfire will be the real paradise. In another hadith, which is very amazing in Musnad Ahmad, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, مَعَهُ صُورَةٌ مِثْلَ صُورَةِ الْجَنَّةِ وَالنَّارِ. He used the word picture. He will have something like a picture of the paradise and hellfire. And he would show people will see, oh, this thing looks like a paradise. And they would want to enter over there. And everyone wants to get over there. But as they will get over there, they will realize it's not Jannah. This is not Jannah. Now, as they thought, when they were far away looking at it, they thought it's Jannah. When they came there, they realized they can't even buy a home there without a mortgage. They can't live without having loans on them throughout their lives and then being slaves for those banks working for them for the rest of their lives. They don't even have time for their families anymore. And not only that, now each and every member of the family will be out working, money making machine. And the whole household will be only working to make some money and no time for each other. Destroyed the whole family life. It seemed like it was Jannah. If this is Jannah, where you are just like a slave, no time for yourself, no time for your family, no time for anything that you feel it's of importance in your life, and keep on working just like a slave. Rasulullah, this is only an example that I gave. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is telling us he will have something like Jannah and Jahannam. Whatever he would show as a Jannah, that will be really Jahannam for people. Therefore he says, when he shows you something and he tries to prove to you that this is Jannah, don't get into that, otherwise you will burn for the rest of your life. And whatever he will show you as Jahannam, that will be the real Jannah. There you will have the peace of mind. And this is part of Dajjal, as we talked about, mixing up of truth and falsehood. In other hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam tells us, and the reason I'm going through these hadith so that we will have some understanding of his fitna, then inshallah we'll see what are the main signs of his fitna, and how would we know really through these hadiths what are the main points that we learn from these hadiths about the fitna of Dajjal. I will inshallah go to that conclusion at the end, but let us go through some of these hadiths. Another hadith which is in Sunan al-Tirmidhi, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells us, Badiru bil a'mali sab'an. Do the good deeds as quickly as you can before seeing one of these 7 situations. Before falling into any of one of these 7 situations, you better do the good deeds. Simply means these are the situations that will prevent the person from being able to perform the good deeds. What are those situations? Faqran munsiya. A type of poverty where that will make the person forget about deen. All he's thinking about dollars. He's poor. He has a lot of needs. Has to make his living. And therefore has to keep on working. And that work makes the person forget of his deen. أو غنى مطغيا. Or it could be the opposite situation. A type of wealth that will make the person arrogant. Alhamdulillah, oh, I have all of this now. Why do I need to go and pray over there in this small place? I can't go and stand in that saf over there. I don't like those people over there. And now hundreds of excuses. It's only because Allah gave the person, blessed the person with so much of the worldly things that he was asking for. Now the person does not want to even see the faces of the masajid. Third situation, maradan mufsida, a type of disease that will prevent the person from being able to do anything. Number 4, haraman mufnida, or a type of old age that will just destroy the person. Will not be able to do anything in the old age. You can't do nothing too much. A lot of time wait. Or once I get, inshallah, at the age of my father, then I will do these. And then with all the problems that we have, knee problem, back problem, and cannot sleep, couldn't sleep last night, and or had to sleep more, too much cholesterol, and whatever else you know nowadays. So, no time for to do anything, not being able to do anything. أو موتا مجهزا, or a death that will just take the person away. أو الدجال فشر غائب ينتظر. Or Dajjal, that is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, worst thing that people are waiting for. أو الساعة فالساعة أدهى وأمر, or the day of judgment might come, and that is even worst. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling us in this hadith that these are the things that will prevent the person from being able to do virtuous deeds, and one of these things is Dajjal. As Dajjal will come, it will be difficult to do the good deeds at that time. So many fitnas that the person are not able to do most of the things that they were able to do before that. In another hadith which is in Musnad Ahmad, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam tells us exactly the place from which Dajjal will come out. And he named that place Khurasan. Where is Khurasan these days? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in some of the other hadiths he named a place, he said a place which will be close to Syria. In some other hadiths he said somewhere between Syria and Iraq. And then in some hadiths, as I said in Musnad Ahmad, he named the place exactly and he called it Khurasan, which at this time Khurasan is in Iran. He will come out of somewhere around there. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed us that Dajjal will be killed in a place called Bab Lud. Bablud is in Palestine, and that is where Sayyidina Isa alayhi salatu wasalam would come and kill Dajjal. Talking about his fitna, as Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam tells us, وَأَكْثَرُ مَنْ يَخْرُجُ إِلَيْهِ النِّسَاءِ. The largest number of people that will follow Dajjal will be women. In another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says that a time will come with this fitna of Dajjal, as he will come out, so many of the women will start following him that a person will be running to his home to make sure that his mother, his sister, his aunt and his daughters are still home, and he will try to keep them locked in the home before they would run away and follow the Dajjal. Another sign that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentioned of is قبل خروج الدجال ثلاث سنين. There will be 3 years before the Dajjal will come out, where in the first year we will lose 1/3 of the growth that normally we have. So people in the world will have a lot of difficulty surviving. They will lose 1/3 of the growth. Next year they will lose 2/3 of it. And the 3rd year before the Dajjal will come, during that year there will be almost no growth. And people will be in a very difficult situation. And imagine at that time the Dajjal will come. And as he would come, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, he would go to a group of people, a town, to a village, and he would ask them, would you like to have the growth as you used to have it before, or even better? They would say yes. He said, if you believe in me as being your Lord, I will do it for you. And they will say, okay, we believe in you. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said he will order the earth to bring out its treasures, and it will start bringing them out. And he will order the skies to rain, and it will start raining. He will go to another town, and he would ask them if they would believe in him, so that he can give them all of that growth. And they will say, no, we don't believe in you as your Lord, as a Lord. And he would take away even all the growth that they had before, and whatever savings they had, he will take even that away from them. In other words, those who will not believe in the Dajjal, financially, they will have a very difficult time. Sanctions from all around. And whatever they have, it will be taken away from them. And at that time he would say, the only way you can take this back, or we can help you, is you do what I'm telling you to do. If you do it, you would get it. If you won't do it, you will lose even what you have. Very difficult situation. In another hadith, which is in Musnad Ahmad, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says that he would go and talk to people and ask them, do you believe in me as Lord? They said, no. How about I make your own camel and your own cattle talk to you and tell you that I'm your Lord? So they say, okay, make them do it. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says he would bring shayateen in the forms of animals, and these shayateen in the form of animal will talk to people. They will not be real animals. There will be shayateen that will talk to people. Many times when we see these type of things, oh, animal is speaking, so it might be true. Here we should remember these ahadith, that even if animal speaks, it means nothing. Animal speaking is not a more important proof than wahi speaking to us and a prophet of Allah telling us something. For some reason we get too impressed by animals. And when they talk to us, we will think, okay, this is now better than the revelation. No. Sometimes people get impressed by shayateen and jinns talking to them. Oh, I was hearing someone, I knew someone was there, I couldn't see the person, so he made me talk to a jinn. Jinn are a lesser important creation of Allah than human beings. This is why when a prophet was to be selected, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selected a prophet, and the greatest of the prophets are out of human beings. So even if a jinn would talk to a person, that means nothing. In another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam tells us that he would go and ask people to believe in him. As they would reject to believe in him, at that time he would ask them, how about if I bring your forefathers back to life? And they would talk to you. And of course they would say, okay, if they would come back to life, we will accept it. And shayateen will come in the forms of their parents. There will be a shaitana come in the form of the person's mother and say, son, I'm your mother, and you better believe in him. He is your Lord. And here Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling us those who change the deen of Allah, who refuse the deen of Allah, who refuse to follow the sunnahs of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the orders of the Sharia of Islam, because of their family members, because of their friends, shaitan will be able to trick those people at that time that I'm your father, I'm your brother, I'm your sister, I'm your friend. But those who have more importance to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will say, regardless of who you are, this is what I know of my deen, I'm not going to change my deen because you are saying it. There are many more ahadith, but I mentioned some of the very important points out of these ahadith. Now, looking back at these ahadith, trying to see what is it that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam telling us through these ahadith. One thing that we learn about the fitna of Dajjal from these ahadith is that we will have means of transportation that will be very fast. Fast means of transportations that can get people around the world very fast. As in one of the hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, the hadith in Sahih Muslim, that he would enter each and every town within 40 days. Each and every, and he, in fact, the word used in the hadith, قَرْيَةٌ فَلَا تَدَعُ قَرْيَةً إِلَّا هَبَطَتْهَا فِي 40 لَيْلَةٍ. There won't be any village in the world where he won't get to it within 40 days, except for Mecca and Medina. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says he would try to enter Medina. As he will try to enter Medina, he would find angels protecting Medina, so he will not enter it. At that time, there will be an earthquake in Medina. So those people in Medina that have no iman, or they have nifaq in their hearts out of the people of Medina, they will start leaving Medina Munawwara because of that earthquake. As they will leave, Dajjal will face them there and he will get them there. So we find in the hadith that very quick means of transportation, traveling the whole world within 40 days and getting to each and every place. In another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, talking about his ride, he used the word horse. Now we can change that word into any other word you like. It's a means of transportation. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in fact, he used the word donkey, himar. He used the word donkey. He said, the distance between each step of his donkey will be the distance of 1 day and night, which means his donkey will be so fast that will cover the distance of 24 hours just in one step. And now imagine, when I read this hadith, for some reason, I stopped there for a minute thinking, and I said to myself, there will be a reason why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used the word donkey and not a horse or a camel. Because donkey is it was the worst ride of those days. Horse and camels were better than donkey. It was the worst ride. And this will be the worst ride. There will be, in other words, there will be rides faster than this one. In other hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, and this is in Tafsir al-Qurtubi, I think, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, the distance between his ears will be 40 feet. So a distance between one ear and the other ear will be 40 feet. I don't know if those are the wings or what is that, but something there that the distance will be 40 feet, and some other hadiths speak of 80 feet distance between the two ears. This is one thing that we find in the hadith about right and about the speed of the right. Another thing that we find in the hadith will be having no limits and no barriers and nothing to stop people's voice from getting everywhere in the world. So there will be a type of technology that will get the person's voice everywhere in the world at the same second, in the same moment. Amazing how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would talk about something like this at that time 1400 years ago, where people could not even imagine and think that something of this kind could ever exist, where there were no means of even sending letters to each other to other town, except if you have send a special person that will carry your letter to that person. Forget about voice. And look at the hadith when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi radiyallahu anhu was talking about the description of the Dajjal, and he said, يُنَادِي بِصَوْتٍ لَهُ يَسْمَعُ بِهِ مَا بَيْنَ الْخَافِقَيْنِ. He will call people and he would talk to people in such a way that people from east to west will hear him right then and there. Subhanallah. I mean, these are miraculous words of the Nabuwah. Nothing else, no other explanation. And we see it. The reason I'm mentioning this, so that we realize that we are there. And these things that we see, these are the very same things that Dajjal is going to be using for his fitna. A third thing that we find in the hadith, and that is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam informing us the advanced technology in medicine. Talking about that, in the Quran and in the hadith, the ayah of Quran says about Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, وَأُبْرِئُ الْأَكْمَهَ وَالْأَبْرَصَ وَأُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. I can cure the blind people and all type of diseases, and I can even bring back the dead people back to life with the permission of Allah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam used the same type of wordings in the hadith for Dajjal, that he would do the similar type of thing, where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, يُبْرِئُ الْأَكْمَةِ. He will cure the blind people, and he will be able to bring back some people to life, or at least show people that some people came back to life. And then he gave an example. He will call upon a person to believe in him. That person will reject him. So he would cut the person into two pieces. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, then he would sew that person back, so that person will be back to life. Advanced technology, where they would claim that here we can bring people back to life. Number 5. We find in the hadith, as we just read also, that he will be making people talk to shayateen that will come to them in different forms. Shayateen will talk to people in different forms, in forms of human beings and in forms of animals. And people with weak iman, as they will see that, they might run after it and they will follow Dajjal because of that. Another thing that we find in these ahadith, that he will have a very strong control over the treasures of the world. And he will be the one who would decide, at that time at least, he would be able to make the decision who would have how much in the world. So how much food this country will have, how much medicine this country will have. And he would have a lot of control over that. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us, not only from the ground, even from the skies he will have control. يَأْمُرُ السَّمَاءَ أَن تَمْطُرَ. He will ask the skies to rain and they will rain. So, control from the skies and controls from the ground. And those who would not believe in him and agree with him, he would try to keep all of that away from them. Now, you can translate these words of the ahadith, of the Nabuwah, and we would find that these fitnas are really on their way. And they are there. But they will be on their peak as Dajjal himself will come. And he would really use them in a way that people will see with their eyes, either we take it or we have nothing. Now, we need to remember this. All of these things that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked about that he would use, it does not mean that this technology or use of it is haram. But the thing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling us, that people will be so impressed by these things that they will consider these things as signs of truthfulness. And a person who would use this technology to prove amazing things, people will run after those people thinking that these are the people who run the world. They are the Lord. They are the decision-making people for our lives. See how clearly now we can relate these ahadith to the situation of the world and what direction the world is going to now. After hearing these ahadith, one of the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in got very worried. He said, Ya Rasulullah, please pray for me because I see it's too difficult for me to protect myself against the Dajjal and his fitna. The reason is, Ya Rasulullah, sometimes when I'm hungry, I'm performing the salah and I know that my wife is making bread. The time I see one bread is ready, I try quickly to finish my salah. Sometimes I even feel like breaking my salah and eating up that bread. Ya Rasulullah, if he will have so much control and I would see everything is under his control, how would I protect myself from falling into his fitna? And especially at a time when the love of dunya is so much in the hearts, that this is the main thing for most of the people in the world. Dunya is the main thing. Because of this, we can make our children do every haram in the world, but make sure you get your degree. Make sure you get this work. And over there, keep on doing haram. As long as you keep that work and bring whatever you're supposed to bring back home and you establish yourself, I don't care of what you do there. Dunya became very important. This is one of the main things that he would use. That his main tool will be dunya. And dunya will be, he will be using 3 tools for that. 3 tools as we read in the hadith. Number 1, the worldly gain. Material, money, food, companies, factories. This is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying, no growth. And with his permission, and if he allows, and if you believe in him, then a lot of growth. So you won't have no business if you don't believe in him. Your company will get no business. The second thing that he will use, technology. Through the technology trying to prove his greatness. The third thing, for men especially, he will use women to keep them away and take them away from the deen of Allah. And will put the women in a position that they will lose their shame, everything, so that they can be as attractive as possible to a man, so that every man will fall into the fitna of women. These are the main tools that he would use, that Dajjal will use. And we see how these tools are being used, how we fall into these type of fitnas, how attractive all of these three kind of fitnas are for us, and how difficult it could be for us to protect ourselves from falling into it if we really don't have this strong iman. That's the only thing that will prevent us from falling into that fitna. And now if we look into the message of Surah Al-Kahf, we will realize why this surah is a protection against Dajjal and his fitna. And we will see it in this surah, what type of message Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us in this surah that will protect us against Dajjal and his fitna. Now inshallah, as we go into the surah, we will see all of these things after knowing all of these tools that he will use and the type of fitna that he will have. With this, I would end with these words, that inshallah we need to remember that as we see the fitna, we need to realize iman is the only thing that will help us protect ourselves against the fitna. If we stay away from our faith, from our iman, from our deen, we stay away from following the deen as we are supposed to follow it, very easily people will start falling into that fitna of Dajjal. May Allah protect all of us. And as people will fall into it, it will be just right into kufr. Right into kufr. It won't take too long, as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us, his fitna will just get people into kufr. So very easily people will be falling into kufr. يُصْبِحُ الرَّجُلُ فِيهَا مُؤْمِنًا وَيُمْسِي كَافِرًا. In the morning a person will be mu'min, in the evening the very same person will be kafir. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and our families against the fitnas of Dajjal, and give us the right understanding of this fitna to be able to protect ourselves against it. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.